welcome to the Be a Better You podcast. Today, we are talking about how we often defer our power to other people after emotional abuse. And I really want to talk about this so that I can help you take your power back and stop giving your power away. So this is really, really important for our mental and emotional health, because the more we give away our power, the more we erode our self-confidence. And if we've started out at the beginning with low confidence, you can imagine how much worse it becomes the more that we defer to other people for decisions or for anything that we are trying to do in our lives. So it is important for us to maintain our own sense of security within, to be able to stand up for ourselves, to be able to set boundaries. And so today I'm going to go through why this is so important, understanding it, what are the consequences of not standing in your own power and deferring your power to other people. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is a story of transformation that one of my clients went through. So for a really long time, she had experienced emotional abuse in her previous relationships. She did have some childhood abuse. And what happened was she was really starting to feel very, very powerless. And she was always looking for approval from other people. You might look at this person and say, well, she's a really insecure person initially, right? And she really got used to really giving her power away and putting other people's needs before her own. And she worked in a corporate job where she really felt ignored, she felt unappreciated. And even though she was really intelligent, she had a PhD, she had a master's degree, she was extremely smart, very capable, she never spoke up in meetings. And she really didn't take credit for even her own work often. And when she was looking at her personal relationships, we were finding the same patterns. And even in her friendships, finding the same patterns. And partners, right, often taking her for granted also. So the problem was she didn't have these clear boundaries, which made her really tired, exhausted. She was always doing favors for people, for friends, for coworkers, like even working late hours without extra pay or anything like that. And what was happening here was she was trying to avoid conflicts. And ultimately, she started becoming extremely drained of energy, and she was starting to feel really lonely, starting to feel really resentful of other people, and tried really hard not to show it outwardly, right? Just put a smile on her face. Well, there was a turning point when she came to me, she started working with me, and I think she at that point had just really kind of hit her limit, and she knew she needed something to change, but really just felt stuck in the habits that she had. So we started working together. We started using rapid reprogramming to change her subconscious beliefs and help her so that she could focus on those things and focus on changing those patterns that were keeping her stuck in these behaviors. So in our sessions, she started to realize that her need to please other people and also avoiding confrontations, because that was a big thing, came from her childhood and how she felt growing up with her parents. And that when she was even in grade school, that it was better to stay quiet, that she was even labeled as the shy one. Being agreeable really just kept her safe back then. So we were able to identify these things. Now, we didn't have to dig up the past. These are just things that came up as we were working through it. But, connecting the dots to her childhood as well as how that shaped her in adulthood. So we worked on changing these beliefs and shifting them out and helping her see that her worth was not dependent on other people's approval, and that her voice really did matter, because as a child, she had been programmed to believe that she needed to gain other people's approval and that her voice didn't matter. So we started creating these action steps, right? Because action is important and it helps you create clarity, right? You can shift all the things in your mind that you want, but you have to pair that with action. And so she was able to start setting boundaries with her parents, with her children, with her exes at work. Um, and this included really simple things, right? Like just saying no to things that weren't her responsibility, and maybe speaking up once or twice in a meeting at work. And she also started to take time for herself and then focus on things that were going to help her recharge, like self care and rest and things like that. So the big change happened when at work she was asked to lead a major project, and she was really excited about it. But before that, she would have been too scared to accept it, right? She would have had these beliefs that she wasn't good enough, or that she couldn't do it, or that nobody was going to respect her ideas and what she had to offer. So this massive transformation happened because during the work together, she had been shifting so much. And in the past, she kind of was just in the shadows, and she just would not speak up, and she just kind of kept quiet. But this time, with this new confidence that we were able to help create through changing the neural pathways in her brain, she took it on. So she ended up leading the project with so much confidence. And of course, she's just such a kind-hearted person that she was able to do this in such a way that everybody's work was valued, while also sharing her ideas. And this ended up being a really great success for her. It got her a lot of praise from her bosses and a surprise promotion. So in her personal life, she was able to have healthier relationships. In her work life, she was able to, have a promotion and feel a lot better about herself. And she set these boundaries. And she actually, one thing that I really love that she did was she was choosing to spend time with people who really respected and valued her, because that was something that she wasn't doing before. So there may have been, and I think as we talked about this, some hidden anger, some hidden resentment that she had previous to this that really started to fade away because of shifting all of the things that she had been kind of storing and hiding for so long, and then was able to replace that with a sense of inner peace and confidence that could really propel her forward. So the reason I share this is because I think it shows how when you shift your deeply ingrained beliefs and take back your power, she didn't think she had any power to begin with, but she did. It was always there. It just had been covered up by years of programming and things that people had told her in her life and the ways that she had been taught. But when you take back your power like this, you can really create a lot of positive changes. And by her knowing her worth and setting her boundaries and taking action and putting in all the practice she did in order to change this, she was able to transform her personal life and her professional life. So, if you ever feel like this, if you ever feel stuck and powerless like my client did, then I want you to know that change is possible. And you just have to start somewhere, right? And sometimes people are like, I don't even know where to start. Especially if you're like just out of the emotionally abusive relationship, or if you've just been struggling this for a really long time and you're reading the books and watching the videos, but you don't really have a good starting point. The Radiate and Rise community that I have offers support and tools to help you start, right? It's going to give you that kickstart to help you stay accountable to yourself to take action. And there's very, very small actions, and there's bigger actions that you can take. But if you do this, then at least you have a place to start. So I want to remind everybody about this, because the whole month of July, it's available at founding member price for $22 a month. At the end of July, it ends, and then the price is going up in August. So if you get in at the $22 a month price, you'll get that for a lifetime. So there is a link at the bottom, and you can sign up for that there. So I just wanted to share that story with you. And now we're going to get into really understanding what deferring power is, what it looks like, and how it kind of manifests. So emotional abuse often leads to deferring of power as a coping strategy, okay? So when we are coping, we are really just trying to feel safe in the moment, right? And there's lots of ways that you can cope, but, and I use the word, and I learned this in my trauma-informed certification, that coping is often the same thing as a trauma adaptation, right? So when you are doing some sort of behavior, right, whether it's a positive behavior or a negative behavior, it is a trauma adaptation. So you are adapting, right? Because as human beings, that's what we do, right? We kind of adapt to the situation, circumstances to help us survive and feel safe. But when we have been emotionally abused and we are using different kinds of coping strategies, deferring our power, what this might look like is lacking boundaries, right? Not being able to set boundaries, not being able to say no, right? You're deferring your power to other people because you don't have the ability to hold those boundaries. This could also be easily, like, just almost like quick decision acquiescing, right? Other people are trying to manipulate you and you just go along with it. And this is, again, a coping strategy. And most people are like, well, how is that a coping strategy, right? That's not actually good for me. Well, because it makes you feel safety in some level, right? Because if I make the decision or if I stand up for myself, then bad things could happen to me, right? So it's easier to defer your power because it feels safer. And the other thing is denying your own needs, which that can often result from childhood trauma, where if as a child you were constantly looking at one of your parents and trying to figure out how you could keep mommy or daddy from getting mad, or keep mommy from crying, or telling you that she had her feelings hurt, or whatever that might be, right? If you are upset and you are emotional, you're going to deny your needs for someone else, right? Because it's safer to do that, right? If I'm upset and mommy's upset or daddy's upset, right? There's no room for me to actually express myself or what I need. So you will often, if this is the case, deny your needs because you prefer to allow someone else to have their needs met, right? But then again, what you're doing is you're deferring your power. Now, there are consequences to this, right? When we do this. And one of the big consequences, and I talked about this on one of my other episodes recently, is energy depletion and exhaustion, right? So you end up giving of yourself so tirelessly to other people, maybe even like in my client's case, organizations, your job, your boss, or whatever. And really, a lot of these people don't even care. And they may take advantage of you giving and giving and giving and giving, right? So your energy begins to be drained. And this energy drain, as I talked about in one of my other episodes, affects your physical body and your mental body, right? And your emotional body, all of these areas of you and your overall well-being, right? If you are depleting your energy and you're tirelessly giving to other people, it will have a negative impact on you. Another thing that you may not realize is one of the consequences of giving your power away is unconscious rage and its repression of that rage. So here's what I mean by this. If you are upset that you've never been able to express yourself, right? Even unconsciously, right? You as a child were never allowed to express your needs because other people's needs came first, right? You may be carrying this unconscious rage around with you, and that creates internal exhaustion because you're not allowing that to move through your body and be expressed. And this happens to a lot of people who have been emotionally abused or abused in any way as children and even as adults. So often people will not express themselves or say that they're angry or be angry, right? They'll repress that and carry it around, and that builds inside of you, creating more exhaustion. Denying yourself of your emotions, denying anger, right? And how it affects you, how it affects your relationships, and how it affects how you operate, right, is definitely going to have a negative impact on that, right? I'm not saying that we need to go out and be full of rage or full of anger. But there are healthy ways to express your emotions. There are healthy ways to get your anger out without attacking other people or without yelling or screaming or hurting people, right? You can express your anger in many, many different ways that are healthy, and it will help you, right? What happens for a lot of people is there ends up being a kind of a reactive nature about this, right? Where you're not doing what I said before, like you're not expressing your anger directly towards people in a negative way, right? But in the reactive nature of this, often what happens is you might not have a level of respect for other people. You might isolate yourself. You might do things that are unhealthy for you or other people, right? Because you're repressing that anger inside of you. Some people may even do self-harm and things like that, right? So, and ultimately, it really takes a toll on you, your mental and emotional health, if you are repressing this, if you are energy depleted, right? Because of deferring your power. Now, I want to talk a little bit about shifting your beliefs and then how you can do that, how you can like reclaim your power by doing that. So when you recognize that maybe, oh yeah, I am deferring my power to other people, and oh yeah, I am kind of sitting in the background, and oh yeah, I do let people take advantage of me, or I can't set boundaries or say no, right? You first of all, recognizing that, give yourself a pat on the back because that is important, right? And you probably can feel it. You probably know how disempowering that feels, right? Because then somebody else has the authority over you. Somebody else is in control, and you don't have that sense of freedom that you really want to have. And if you can shift out of the beliefs that are creating that feeling of disempowerment, then you can reclaim your personal power. So there are ways that you do this, right? But the thing I want you to understand is that I can tell you to set boundaries. I can tell you to stand up for yourself. I can tell you to acknowledge your own needs and express your anger and express yourself and practice self-care and I can tell you to do all these things. You're not going to do them if you have limiting beliefs and subconscious blocks that are keeping you from doing it. And that's the most important takeaway from this episode, right? Because I could tell you to, go recharge in your room and, do a meditation and connect to yourself. And all these things are great and amazing and wonderful, but they're not actually going to happen if you have that 95% in your subconscious mind driving the show, saying things that make you believe that you can't do it, right? So if you have a belief that says, I can't speak clearly, I get frazzled too easily, I'm not able to handle confrontation, I don't like conflict, right? Those kinds of things are going to be kind of surface level beliefs that are keeping you from taking the action to set boundaries or to stand up for yourself or to acknowledge your needs, right? Without those kinds of beliefs, if you shift them into something different, you would have a new set of beliefs that would be driving the show in that 95%. Like, I can speak up for myself. I can say no. I'm not worried about what other people are going to think about me. I don't need other people's approval or validation. I feel strong enough in what my convictions are. I value this about myself, right? The shift is in changing what you've always been believing about yourself that keeps you from being able to say no or to set those boundaries or to stand up for yourself, or that is creating that deference of power to somebody else. So, like I said, I could tell you till I'm blue in the face how to do it, what to do. You can Google this stuff. You'll find tons of resources on how to gain your power back, blah, blah, blah. That's the thing that's missing is what I'm telling you every week on this podcast. You have to start on a subconscious level. If you are not rewiring those old neural pathways in your brain that are saying you can't do it, or saying you're not worthy, or saying you're incapable, or whatever. If you're not rewiring those things, they're still in control. It's like autopilot of a vehicle, right? The vehicle is just going to keep going because it's on autopilot. We got to get you back in the driver's seat to say, hold on, wait a second. I can set a boundary. When was the time I set a boundary in the past? And you might be thinking, oh, I never have. I've always deferred my power. I guarantee you there was some time in your life at one point where you set a boundary, right? This could have been at work. This could have been with your children. This could have been in a relationship. This could have been on a walk in your neighborhood, right? There are so many possibilities that we can look at to start reframing these things. And if you're like, nope, then I'm going to ask you to actually do this. Send me a DM and say, you know what? I was trying to shift this belief and I can't think of one single example. I will run through all kinds of scenarios for you, and I will tell you how to find one, right? So if you're like literally stuck and you're like, you know what? I've been listening to this podcast for a while. I've been trying to do this, and I literally can't think of one example of this particular limiting belief. Like, I'm not capable of confrontation, right? Send me a message. I'll help you shift it, right? Because when you're somebody like me and you're dealing with clients all the time who have these kinds of beliefs and they're speaking hour after hour after hour and they're speaking them out loud to me, I'm hearing so many things. And then we start sharing all the different possibilities. And then I am like literally this big storage bank full of different possibilities. Plus I have a very creative mind, so it's easy for me to think about all the different things that could be true for you to help you start making these shifts. If you don't know what's in your subconscious mind, right, that is got to be number one. So you will always want to say, like, why can't I reclaim my power? What emotion am I feeling when I'm feeling this way, like feeling disempowered? And often people will say fear, right? I'm afraid, or maybe insecurity, right? Because you don't have confidence in yourself, right? So then my next question is, okay, well, you're afraid. What specifically are you afraid of? And maybe you say, well, I'm afraid if I say no, people will leave me. Or if I set a boundary, they're not going to love me, right? So that's where I talked about earlier, some of those surface level beliefs. We get down layer after layer after layer. We start figuring this stuff out. We start shifting it. And then you start going, holy crap. Like this, I can't believe I ever believed this. But you only know what you know, right? The lights aren't on yet, right? That's what I help you do. I help you turn the lights on so that you can see. So you're like, oh shit, no, oh my God, yeah, totally. This totally makes sense. Let's get to work. Let's start practicing shifting this stuff so I can start to set boundaries. So I do feel confident, right? Because here, if you think about it, there's lots of people who can set boundaries. There's lots of people who say no. There's a lot of people who stand up for themselves. Why is that? Why can they do it, but someone else can't? And the reason is because they do not have the same limiting beliefs that someone else who can't does. They do not exist in that person's mind. For whatever reason, they're programming, if they reframed it or if they've just raised differently or whatever, right? But the good news is your brain is neuroplastic. You can change these things. You don't have to live with this forever and be like, oh, I'm just a really shy, insecure person. I don't like conflict. I don't say no to people. Like, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can absolutely change that. You might say, know what, that's me and it's just how and that's fine too. I'm not here to tell anybody they need to be different, right? That's not my role. But if you say, you know what, I would like this. I do want to say no. I do want to have boundaries. I do want to stand up for myself. I do want to stop getting walked all over. Okay, so you want to feel empowered. What is the thinking that's happening in your brain that's keeping you from that? If I do this, if I become this empowered person, if I do stand up for myself, what's the bad thing that's going to happen to me? You got to think about that too, because that's an area of resistance. What's the bad thing that's going to happen to me? if I do this? If I am this badass boss bitch, empowered person, what are people going to think about me? What's going to happen to me? What bad things, right? Because everybody can immediately oh, that would be great. That would be amazing. I would love it. But that's your conscious brain talking. That's only 5%, right? What's under the surface? What's the fear that's keeping you from being that, right? And the fear is coming from whatever you believe. So I hope this has been insightful, and I hope you understand just how important it is to getting your power back, and stop letting people take your power away from you, right? Because really and truly, they're not taking it away, you're giving it away, right? Deferring is like you're giving it away to other people. And like I said before, right, if you don't have firm boundaries, if you're just kind of giving into manipulation and denying your own needs, right, there's big consequences to that. Physical consequences. You're depleted. You may not get as far in life because you're deferring your power to someone else. And like I said before, you might be storing unconscious anger and rage because of this, because other people are constantly in control, constantly in power, and you are not. But you're designed to have authority over yourself, right? We're not meant to be slaves. We're meant to have authority over ourselves. So you can start to shift these things, but you have to be in awareness. You can DM me again if you want to have a little bit of a shift and you're like confused, or you can set up like a 20-minute chat with me. I do those. Obviously, I still offer those. But I think the most important thing to know is this is possible for you to change, right? If you decide you want to change it, you do not have to constantly defer your power to other people. So I really encourage you to start recognizing these things in yourself. And some people are like, I don't know how to recognize it. I'll tell you, as soon as you feel the emotion is the alarm. Like if you're like, oh, I can't say no, like what are you thinking in your brain? Think about it. Really get into it and be like, if I say no, they're going to reject me. If I say no, we're going to get into an argument. If I say no, whatever, right? You got to go deep and deep and deep to figure this stuff out. Obviously, I help clients do this all the time, and I do it in my one-on-one programs, and help people shift these thought patterns about what it means if they take their power back, right? So it's really important to rely on you and yourself instead of others to help you reclaim your personal power. And some people don't even like the word power. I had a client one time, she was like, oh, I don't like that word because it made her feel icky, like people in power were bad. So you have to look at those beliefs too. Are all people in power bad? Is there anybody who's in power that's good? Right? So we have to start shifting all of that stuff too. So this is not something that just happens overnight, right? That's why I have a 12-week program, because in that 12-week program, we are practicing and we are getting to the root of the problem to shift it so that you, after those 12 weeks, that you feel good and you feel capable and you feel strong and confident and at peace, and that you're not ruminating or you're not getting triggered, right? Because it all starts in the subconscious mind. And when you get to the subconscious mind and you make these changes, then you've created new neural pathways that drive your behaviors and obviously how you feel. So if you would like to join Radiate and Rise inside the community, we have a lot of tools, a lot of healing methods. I have lessons. I have different topics. We have once a month coaching for an hour. So you can come in for $22 and get coached by me for 1 hour for $22 a month, right? And you can cancel anytime. So I really hope that you'll join me in there. If it's not for you, obviously you don't have to stay. I'm not making anybody hang out with me in my online community, but you will get this at $22 a month for the next couple of weeks at the founding member price. August 1st, it's going up. So I'd really encourage you to take this step, take a little bit of action, do something towards your healing, and empower yourself and join the community. And there's a lot of people in there. Some of my former clients are in there, some new faces are in there, and everybody is incognito if they wish to be, and we're helping each other, supporting each other, and learning together. So I hope this has been helpful to you. If you want to join, the link is in the show notes, and also feel free to send me a DM anytime with any questions that you have, and I'll talk to you next week.